Hello! Today I'm going to show you how to make this lovely little dressing table mirror that has two drawers in the base and a mirror that you can angle. And for this project again I've used Obeche wood, and that's spelled O-B-E-C-H-E, and you'll need a sheet wood in 1.5mm and 2.5mm and a strip wood in 3mm. You could also use something like basswood or gelatine. You'll need a craft knife. I use this Swan Morton knife which takes a size 10A blade. Always put a new blade in at the start of a project. Nice sharp pencil for accurate measuring. A steel rule, obviously for measuring and for cutting the wood along with your craft knife. A pair of pliers to cut the pins needed for the angling, and for those I've used these 10mm long pins, and they've got a gold finish on them which matches the varnish, but if you could use just normal silver dressmaking pins if you have those. Cocktail sticks for applying the glue, and I've also used a cocktail stick to make the small drawer knobs. The glue I've used again is my Gorilla wood glue. I've varnished my mirror using dark oak, and that's just a normal interior varnish. You could paint it if you want a more sort of contemporary look. You'll need a mini drill, and that's got a 0.75mm drill bit in there. That's 1/32 of an inch. But just a sort of drill bit that will allow you to push a dressmaking pin through. A couple of grades of sandpaper. I use a 500 for the fine sanding and to prepare for varnish, and then a slightly stronger 120 grade for shaping the wood. And then for the mirror I've used this sort of mirrored acetate. But if you haven't got that, you could use just a piece of mirrored card, and I think I saved this out of a box of chocolates, and that's just a nice thin card, and obviously will cut a lot easier. Something you might have to hand. But the mirrored acetate you can buy in A4 sheets, and that can be cut with your craft knife. Okay, I think that's everything you're going to need. The cutting list is coming up next, and then we'll get started. Okay, so in the cutting list I advise you to cut a few of the pieces with the grain running in the direction of the shortest edge, and that's just because with these smaller projects a lot of these pieces will have the shortest edge facing forwards, and the edge of the wood that runs in the direction of the grain is always a lot neater than the edge that runs against the direction of the grain. That's normally quite bobbly. And it's a small thing, but I think it really does make a difference to the finished piece. So that's just why I advise that. So begin by making a pencil mark down the centre of your top, bottom and back pieces. And then on the top and bottom pieces, just continue that line onto the short edge of the wood. And then that just helps when we come to place the drawer divide. Okay, so we're going to begin by attaching the side piece to the back piece. So I've dispensed some glue here onto a piece of cereal packet card, and I'm going to use a cocktail stick to apply it with. So just apply a line of glue along the short edge of the back piece, and then attach the side piece. Press that into place. If things get stuck to your work surface, always slide them along rather than trying to pick them up, because it will just come apart, especially with these smaller projects as well. And then take the top piece and apply glue along one long edge and one short edge, and then this piece sits on the inside of those joined pieces, and so that the top of it is flush with the top of that back piece. So just use your finger and run it along that top edge, just pushing it into place so that you've got a nice flush top edge. And then pull the side piece in to meet it, and then that will square the whole thing off. Just making sure that that side piece is flush as well, and make sure that the piece is right down in that corner. And then we're going to take the draw divide, and it's going to sit centrally over that pencil line, and we can use this line here in the centre of the top piece just to help us line that up. So again, apply glue along one long edge, one short edge. And I'm just going to have to turn this piece round just to place that correctly. So it's sitting right centrally over that line. And then just look at it from the front to make sure that you're happy that it's straight. And just manoeuvre it slightly if you need to. And then apply glue along the bottom of that draw divide. And then we're going to put the bottom piece into place, again on that inside edge. And when you're cutting pieces this small, sometimes some pieces are slightly bigger than they should be. But once all the glue has dried, we can just sand it all off on all edges, and that will make it into a nice flush piece. So don't worry at this stage if you've got any sort of overhanging edges or anything. When you're hand cutting, that can happen. The only way you can get them exact is by using like laser cutters and things like that, which I never use. Okay, press that all into place. And then apply glue to this exposed side. And then the remaining side piece can be attached. Just press that into place. And then just ensure that the top and bottom pieces are flush with the top and bottom of the side piece. And just pressing it all together until I can feel the glue beginning to take. And as you're doing that, you can sort of knock pieces out of place, so just always make sure everything's remaining where it should be. And then we can leave that piece to dry before we move on to the next stage. Okay, so once the glue has completely dried, you can sand all edges of this drawer piece. So with your sandpaper on your worktop, hold it against it and just go around in circular motions on all sides, so top, bottom, along the front, on the back as well, and then any edges will all be smoothed off and you'll have a nice flush drawer unit. Okay, so then we're going to bevel one long edge and both short edges of the base top and bottom pieces, so they look like this. So take the piece and hold it at a 45-degree angle against your sandpaper and just sweep it towards you. You don't have to press too hard. So just a few sweeps and it will start to bevel off. And do the same thing again at each side. And then I like to take a piece of fine grade sandpaper and just tidy those edges off so you've got no rough edges. Okay, and then just because we haven't got a lot of room for clamps inside the drawers, I like to attach the top and bottom pieces separately. So when you attach it, the back will be flush with the back of the drawer unit, and you'll have an even overhang at either side and at the front edge as well. Okay, so apply glue to the top of the drawer unit. Oops, a bit too much on there. Like so. And then actually you can put it on your desktop and do it that way round. Press that into place. Make sure that back edge is flush. And then as you press it down, I shouldn't be doing that with my finger, just remove the excess glue from along those joints. If you do get the glue on your finger, do go and wash it off rather than sort of waiting for it to dry and picking it off. It's really important to remove the glue as you're working, especially if you're going to be varnishing the piece, because varnish won't take over glue residue, so you'll have lots of sort of different coloured patches, which doesn't look very nice. So get rid of as much as you can as you're working, and then we can sand the rest off before we varnish. Okay, so I'm just trimmed a bit of masking tape, just cut it in half. I'm going to put that straight over the top. Just make sure that the back has stayed flush as you've done that. You've got time to do that before the glue begins to set. And then I'm just going to put a couple of clamps on here just to hold that top in place. And as glue dries, the wood tries to curl upwards, so it's always important to clamp it down, as you'll always have a gap there. So there's the bottom or top piece done. And then once that's dried, remove the tape and the clamps and fit the remaining piece. So in the cutting list I advise you to cut the pieces needed for the drawers after construction of the main unit, and that's just because slight misplacement of this central divide will affect the size of the drawer openings, and if you've already cut the pieces it can be very annoying when you come to fit them and they won't fit. So always construct the piece, measure the openings, and then resize the measurements I've given accordingly. And I always just deduct 1/2 millimetre or even less than that from each of the measurements, so width, height and depth, and that will just ensure that the drawer glides in and out smoothly. Okay, so once you've cut your pieces, begin by attaching the sides. So apply glue along each edge of the base piece. These are such small pieces, so it's quite fiddly. If you need to use tweezers, then do so. And then attach the side pieces. Just put them into place. And then, because these are so small, I've just got a couple of spare pieces of strip wood here, and place one at either side, and then you can press the pieces against the base, and it's just easier doing it like this than trying to sort of press them together with your fingers. This will make the sides stand up straight as well. And that's that. Just pop that to one side. Always slide things along your worktop rather than trying to pick them up. And then this piece is now dry, so you can then apply glue along the front and back edges. And then attach the front and back pieces. And again, you can use your spare pieces of strip wood to press all that together. Make sure the sides are flush with the sides of the front and back pieces. Just get rid of that glue along the edge, and then that can be left to dry. This should be dry enough now for me to handle. Okay, so once the glue has dried, sand the drawers on all edges and on the top and bottom as well, and you can do that against your sandpaper and just use small circular motions. I'm not doing it now because it makes such a horrible noise. And then just check that they fit nicely into the openings, and if you need to sand a little bit more, just do it a little at a time so you don't take too much off. And then to make the drawer knobs, I'm going to use a cocktail stick. Move those out of the way. So just begin by removing the pointed end, and I find it helps if you sort of roll the stick along the table as you're cutting, and that piece has flown off somewhere, never to be seen again. And then take a piece of medium grade sandpaper, and you just want to round off that end. So I'm just turning the cocktail stick in my fingers and just sort of sweeping the sandpaper over the top. And then that just gradually begins to round off to create more of a sort of drawer knob shape. And then I want to cut that about 2mm long, so place it against your rule and hold on to the end that you've just rounded. I don't think I'm in the right position there, but so just hold on to it with your fingertip, otherwise it will just sort of fly off. And then just place your ruler above the 2mm mark, and again just roll in the cocktail stick along, just cut that end piece off and keep hold of it, as it will just sort of ping off into the unknown like the cocktail stick just did. And then we've just got a tiny little rounded drawer knob there. And then take the drawer and make your pencil mark in the centre. So first of all, go in across, just draw a faint line. These drawers are so tiny, it's so fiddly. And then make the pencil mark centrally going down the front of the drawer. Is that about 7.5, so about there. And then you'll need tweezers for this. Got here somewhere. So hold the drawer knob with the tweezers and then just apply a tiny little dot of glue. And then glue that into place. Once that's just begun to dry off, do remove the glue around the outside edge. Otherwise, if you're varnishing it, it will leave that sort of horrible mark around the edge of the drawer knob. Okay, so repeat that process for the remaining drawer, and then we'll move on to the next stage. Okay, so next, take the mirror supports and just take one of them there, turn it lengthwise and just make a pencil mark 5mm or 13/64 of an inch from the top. Just a faint pencil mark across the piece like that, and then make a pencil mark in the centre of that line there like that, and rub out the line. And then we're just going to drill, this is 0.75mm this drill bit, so less than a millimetre. I think it's about 1/32 of an inch, and it's just enough to take a dressmaking pin. So just drill through the support, and do the same with the other one, and then we're going to make a pencil mark 1.5 millimeters or 1/16 of an inch from each of the long edges. Make a little line up like that, and there, and then turn the piece around, and you'll need to use the other support here to support your ruler, and place the ruler from that bottom corner up to the pencil mark you've just made, and we're going to make a diagonal cut here. And I'll show you when I've done it so you can see what I mean. Okay, so we're cutting diagonally down the long edge of the piece, and then turn and do the same on the other side. So from the pencil mark to the corner of the wood. And then when you've done that, take your fine grade sandpaper and just want to round over these corners. So just sweep the sandpaper over the corner, tidying up this cut edge as well, and do that on the other side. Like that. And then you can also round from front to back. So we've just got a nice sort of rounded top edge there. Okay, so repeat that process with the remaining support. Okay, so next take your mirror sides, so that's the longer of the pieces, and we're going to drill a hole 17 millimeters or 43/64 of an inch from what will become the bottom edge. So begin by making a pencil mark, and in the centre of the strip, that's the narrow edge, the narrow way, and then drill your hole. And again we're using the small drill bit. Okay, so do that in both pieces. Okay, so all of the pieces are now prepared, and I've sanded each piece again with a fine grade sandpaper just to prepare them for the varnish. And when I'm varnishing small pieces like this, I like to wear these vitral gloves which will protect your hands from the varnish. So when varnishing smaller pieces or painting them, I normally sort of prop them against an old tin to dry, and that way they won't stick to it, rather than leaving them on your sort of card or whatever it is you use to protect your work surface. And then with this larger piece, I varnished the sort of front visible area, and then I'm holding it using a pair of tweezers, and then I can varnish the rest of it again without getting finger marks on it and without getting varnish on my fingers. Okay, so the varnish is now dry, and that's had a gentle sand. Take a dressmaking pin, and you just want to poke it through each of the holes that we made earlier, just to make sure that there's no sort of varnish stuck in there. So go through each of the holes, and then cut your piece of mirror. Now this can be cut with a normal craft knife. It is quite thick, it's probably about 2.5 millimeters thick. That's 3/32 of an inch, but it can be cut with a craft knife, but just persevere with it. It will take some getting through, and always cut from the back and leave the sort of protective film in place while you're doing it. Okay, so then remove the protective backing. And I've tried this a couple of times, and even using a sort of glue that is made for acetate so that it doesn't mark, I found that it still did, because once you've removed the protective film, there's sort of a layer over this to make the mirror, and the glue tends to seep underneath. so you'll find that you've got glue residue that you can't get off. So I've sort of come up with a way of attaching the frame to it. So cut a piece of masking tape, and just move those out of the way a minute. And this is the 50mm thickness, or the 2-inch thickness, but if you only got the thinner one, then you can just do 2 strips and secure it to your worktop like that. And then lay your mirror on there, press it down, and then just apply a tiny dot of glue to each end of the top and bottom pieces. Just a little tiny dot, and this will just stick the frame pieces together, but without touching the mirror. Lay that piece at the top. Same with the bottom piece. And press it down against the tape. And then you want to attach the side pieces so that the drilled hole is towards the side, and so that it's 17mm up from the bottom, so the hole should be closer to the bottom edge. Make sure you've got that the right way round, and then push that into place. Just press it all down, and then attach the remaining side piece again, checking that the hole is nearer to the bottom. And squeeze that all together. And then take your craft knife, we can just now cut it away from the tape. So get the knife so it's as close to the frame as possible. That. Come on the top. There's just a little bit extra on this side that I'm going to get rid of. Okay, and then take 2 of your pins and use pliers to trim them to 6mm or 1/4 of an inch long, including the pin head. So we want to keep the pin head on there. Just check that's the right length. Okay, so push that through the mirror support like that, and then take the mirror and push that into the hole on the side of the mirror and lay it on your worktop, and then you might just want to use the tip of your pliers just to push that in. Keeping the support straight. And then repeat that process with the remaining support. Okay. So once both supports are attached, apply glue to the bottom of the supports. I'm holding it all together as I do this. And then bring in your mirror base and attach it so that it's sitting centrally on the base, and you can judge that because you know the drawer divide is in the centre. and so that the supports are towards the back of the base. Or sitting level with the back. Let me just turn that round. And you want to make sure that it's all straight as well. Your mirror might move while you're doing this, so sort of try and support it all at the same time. And if you're not very good at measuring by eye, then you can just make a little pencil mark in the middle at the bottom of the mirror frame and line that up with your central draw divide. So press it all into place and do allow the glue to dry before you tilt the mirror, otherwise your supports may come away. So once the glue has dried, you'll be able to angle your mirror, and there is the completed piece. If you sort of cut into the varnish when you were cutting away your masking tape, you might just want to touch up the varnish. Just use a tiny little brush. I hope you've enjoyed this project. If so, please do subscribe to the channel, as there's lots more to come. I shall be doing a dressing table and a wardrobe in this same style to match the pieces I've already done for the bedroom. So if you want to see those, then do subscribe, and they'll be coming up over the next couple of weeks. If you enjoy making doll's house miniatures, you might enjoy my latest book, Making Doll's House Miniatures in 1/12 scale, which is available from Amazon, and I'll pop a couple of links below. And for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.